There's something that quietly shapes the rhythm of our days, something most people overlook, not because it's hidden, but because it's always there, like the air we breathe. And the older we grow, the more clearly we begin to see it. It isn't what life throws at us that defines how we feel. It's not the wrinkles on our hands or the silence in our homes. What truly shapes our days more than anything else is what we choose to focus on. Moment by moment, thought by thought, our focus becomes the quiet author of our reality. Some people wake up in the morning and the first thing they notice is the aching in their knees, the loneliness in the air, or the list of things that never got done. Others wake up and notice the warmth of the sunlight on the curtain, the stillness that asks for no explanation, or the simple gift of another day. It's the same morning, the same world, but a different experience entirely, not because the world changed, but because their focus did. There's a woman I once knew, well into her 70s, who tended to her garden each day as though it were a sacred ritual. She never fussed about the weeds. She didn't complain when the flowers wilted. She simply watered the ones that were blooming, the ones still fighting to grow, even in tired soil. I once asked her why she didn't pull out the dead leaves, and she smiled with a kind of wisdom only age can give. Because I don't waste energy on what I don't want to grow, she said. Even in my mind, her words stayed with me. Because the truth is, our minds are no different than her garden. Every thought we feed, every memory we revisit, every small worry or joy we give our attention to, it all begins to bloom, to take root, to multiply. Most people don't realize it, but they spend years watering pain, resentment, disappointment, until it overtakes everything else. And they wonder why peace seems so hard to find. We become what we pay attention to. That isn't just a poetic saying, it's a quiet law of living. Focus is not passive, it is an act of creation. The Dhammapada says, what you dwell upon you become. And yet, how many of us spend our days dwelling on what we fear, what we've lost, what could go wrong, instead of the quiet miracles that are still with us? This is not a call to pretend everything is beautiful. It's a gentle reminder that even in the middle of imperfection, we still hold the power to choose where our attention rests. And that choice, small, quiet, barely noticeable to the world, changes everything. Because what you feed grows, what you ignore fades, and the mind, just like a garden, will give you more of whatever you nurture. So the real question is not what's missing from your life. The question is, what are you still watering? Let us begin with that. Part 1. The mind as a garden. What are you watering? There's a quiet truth that sneaks up on us as the years go by. Our minds don't grow old, they grow familiar. Familiar with what we repeat. Familiar with the stories we tell ourselves again and again, even when no one else is listening. And just like a garden responds to the hands that tend it, our inner world responds to the thoughts we nurture most. The question is not whether our minds are growing, but what they are growing. Picture for a moment an old garden behind a house, perhaps not perfectly kept, but deeply loved. Some patches bloom with wild roses and basil and soft lavender. Others, forgotten, have grown tangled with thorns, stubborn weeds and dry, lifeless soil. Now imagine the gardener, perhaps someone like yourself, walking through each morning with a watering can in hand. Where they stop, where they pour their attention, is what grows. So it is with the mind. Many of us, unknowingly, water weeds. We revisit old conversations that hurt us, rehearse imagined futures filled with fear, or carry regrets like heavy stones in our pockets. We feed them not because we want to, but because they've grown familiar. Because pain, strangely enough, gives the illusion of control. If we can analyze it enough, maybe we can change the past. If we replay the betrayal one more time, maybe this time we'll see it coming. But of course, we never do. Buddhism reminds us again and again, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. Dhammapada. When you water worry, it deepens. When you feed resentment, it tightens its grip. But when you start gently, patiently to water peace, gratitude, compassion, they begin to sprout again, even in soil hardened by decades of storms. I remember visiting a monk once in Chiang Thailand. He had a tiny courtyard filled with potted plants. Some were nothing but stems, others were lush and bright. He pointed to a pot with no flowers and said, "That one used to be my anger. I stopped watering it." Then he gestured to a blooming orchid. "This is my patience. I care for it every morning." It was so simple, and yet so profound. In the West, we're often told to fix our thoughts, repair them, battle them, reframe them. But Buddhism doesn't ask us to fix the mind like a broken machine. It invites us to observe it gently and then tend to it like a garden. Not with force, but with care. Not with blame, but with understanding. And so we begin by noticing what thoughts show up most often in your mornings. What memories replay when you're alone with silence? Do they lift you or weigh you down? Are they the fruit of something you want to grow, or the stubborn weeds of an old season long past? The good news is, it's never too late to shift your attention. Even a garden left wild for years can bloom again. All it takes is intention, a little water in the right place, a little light. So tomorrow morning, when your thoughts begin to stir, ask yourself, not in judgment, but with gentle awareness, what am I watering today? And remember, even if the weeds are thick, even if you've fed them for decades, one small change in focus can begin to bring color back to the places inside you that you thought had gone gray. Part 2. You are not your thoughts. You are what you feed. It's a strange thing, isn't it? How we can spend a whole lifetime living inside our minds and yet rarely stop to question who exactly is speaking in there or what we've been listening to all these years. The human mind is like a constant narrator, whispering judgments, memories, predictions, and fears. And for many of us, especially in our later years, those voices have become so familiar, so practiced, that we no longer see them as passing thoughts. We start to see them as ourselves. But here's the truth that Buddhist wisdom so tenderly offers. You are not your thoughts. You are not your worst day. You are not your fears. You are not the voice that tells you it's too late. What you are, moment to moment, is what you choose to feed. And that, dear one, is something you can change, no matter your age. In the teachings of the Buddha, there is a beautiful metaphor known as the 2 arrows. The first arrow is the pain of life, aging, illness, disappointment, loss. These are inevitable, but the second arrow is the one we shoot into ourselves. The stories, the judgments, the harsh words we repeat over and over, sometimes for decades. We say, "I should have done better. I wasted too much time. No one really sees me anymore." And with each repetition, we feed the fire of suffering. But here's the miracle. You don't have to keep feeding it. A friend of mine, a widowed man in his early 80s, once shared something with me over tea. After his wife passed, he found himself waking up every morning with a single aching thought: "I'm alone." That thought, repeated every day, began to shape the color of his world. He stopped gardening. He stopped going on his walks. Even food lost its taste. One morning, he told me, something shifted. He looked out the window and saw a small bird land on the empty chair across from him. It wasn't profound. It wasn't planned, but in that moment, something simple entered his heart. Maybe I'm not alone. Maybe I'm just listening to the same thought too often. That day, instead of letting the thought of absence take over, he tried a new one. Today, I will look for what's still here. That small decision to feed a new thought changed everything. Buddhist practice isn't about fighting the mind. It's about watching it with compassion, observing without attachment. Thoughts will come and go like clouds, but you are the sky. The sky doesn't panic when a storm passes through. It simply allows it, knowing that blue skies will return. And just like the gardener who tends to blooming flowers instead of dead leaves, we too can choose what mental seeds we nurture. If you constantly focus on your shortcomings, that's all you'll feel yourself to be. But if you begin, even quietly, to notice your strength, your kindness, your quiet perseverance through years of struggle, you start to see a different version of yourself, one that has always been there, waiting beneath the noise. The mind is loyal, too loyal sometimes. It will keep showing you what you've rehearsed. But if you change the script, the scenery begins to change too. So the next time that old familiar voice rises, whether it tells you you're too old to start over, or that your best days are behind you, pause, breathe, and ask, is this a thought worth feeding? Because the version of you that's tired, self-doubting, and full of regret is not the truth. It's just the one you've accidentally given the microphone to for too long. And now, gently, it's time to hand that microphone to someone new, someone wiser, kinder, someone who sees the whole of you, not just the broken parts. Part 3. The illusion of control versus the freedom of attention. There's a quiet kind of suffering that sneaks in during the later chapters of life. Not loud, not dramatic, but persistent, like a slow wind wearing down a mountain. It's the suffering that comes from trying to control what was never ours to hold. The past, the behavior of others, the unfolding of time. And yet, many of us, without even realizing it, spend years clutching tightly to the illusion that if we just think hard enough, worry long enough, or replay the story one more time, we might finally change what cannot be changed. But the more we cling to control, the more peace slips through our fingers. Buddhism teaches us a liberating truth. Peace does not come from fixing everything out there. It comes from loosening our grip in here. In Majjhima Nikaya 131, the Buddha says, "Do not chase the past or long for the future. What is past is left behind. The future is as yet unreached. Whatever quality is present, clearly see it right there." These words aren't just philosophy. They're medicine for the restless mind. There is an elderly man named Thomas I, sometimes think about, a retired school teacher, widowed twice, estranged from one of his children, and quietly battling the loneliness that often tiptoes in when the world no longer needs your opinion or your schedule. He once told me he used to lie awake at night, rehashing arguments he never won, imagining ways he could have changed the course of his children's lives, of his marriage, of his regrets. It was like playing chess with ghosts, he said. I never won, I never slept. One day, he decided to change the game, not by rewriting the past, but by withdrawing his attention from it. He began to pray in silence each morning, not to beg for different outcomes, but simply to listen. He told me, "I finally learned that I couldn't control the storm, but I could sit under a tree and listen to the rain." This is the shift. Not from pain to perfection, but from resistance to awareness. Not from fixing, but from focusing on what is still within reach. You see, when you give all your attention to what's outside your control, what they said, what they never apologized for, what should have been, you become a prisoner of a reality you can't change. But when you start placing your focus on what's inside your circle of influence, your breath, your tone, your actions, your kindness, you begin to reclaim something far greater than control. You reclaim freedom. This isn't easy, especially not in a world that teaches us to measure our worth by outcomes, accomplishments, or the reactions of others. But Buddhism invites us to see life differently. It asks, gently, can you see clearly without needing to control? Can you care deeply without needing to grip? Because here's the paradox. When we release the need to control, we begin to see what was always within our power, the freedom to choose where our attention goes. And where our attention goes, our energy flows. That's not self-help fluff. That's life-changing wisdom in motion. Letting go doesn't mean apathy. It means clarity. It means no longer pouring the precious water of your attention into fields that will never grow. It means finally turning toward the part of the garden that is still blooming, still open, still alive with possibility. So the next time your thoughts reach for what cannot be fixed, try this instead. Pause, breathe, and gently turn toward what you can touch. This breath, this small moment, this sacred now. And perhaps, just perhaps, in letting go of control, you'll find something far more lasting. Peace. Part 4. The practice of refocusing. One thought at a time. If the mind were a room, most of us would find it cluttered. Not from lack of intelligence or awareness, but because over the years we've gathered so many thoughts we never questioned, never sorted, never truly chose, just collected, like heirlooms from a life we didn't entirely design. And now, in the stillness of older age, when the world slows just enough for us to hear ourselves think, we're finally left alone with all that noise. And yet there's something quietly hopeful about that too, because now, more than ever, we have the time, the wisdom, and the presence to clean the room. Not all at once, not perfectly, but with intention. That's what refocusing really is. It's not some big performance or dramatic spiritual leap. It's a gentle daily choice to place our attention not on what we fear or resent or cannot change, but on what brings light, meaning, and quiet strength. In Buddhist tradition, there is a beautiful metaphor often told to monks in training. It goes like this. A young student came to the Buddha, frustrated that his mind kept wandering during meditation. Every time I try to concentrate, my thoughts pull me away, he said. The Buddha replied, just as a cowherd uses a stick to gently guide the cows back when they stray, you too must guide your mind, patiently, persistently, until it learns the path home. That's the essence of practice. Not suppression, not perfection, but return. And for us, in daily life, that return begins with small, deliberate acts of noticing. Imagine you're standing at your kitchen window. The sun is rising. Your coffee is warm in your hand. A thought passes through your mind. I'm all alone. But instead of accepting it as a fact, you pause. You ask yourself, is this thought serving me today? Maybe it's familiar. Maybe it's been with you for years. But is it true? Is it helpful? Or is it simply a weed you've accidentally watered for too long? Now imagine making a new choice. You breathe in. You look again. You see the light touching the dishes, the birds fluttering across the yard, the way the steam curls upward from your mug like a soft ribbon. And then you choose a different thought. I'm still here. And this moment is full of life. It seems small, almost silly. But it's everything. Because that one shift in focus, however quiet, rewires the nervous system, softens the body, opens the heart. And as you repeat it, day after day, your mental camera begins to point in a different direction. You start noticing what's working. You start savoring simple joys. You stop giving your energy to inner critics or ancient shadows that no longer deserve your attention. This is how we reclaim peace, not by forcing ourselves to be positive, but by choosing one breath at a time where our mind will rest. And yes, there will be days when you forget, when old thoughts come rushing in like a tide, trying to pull you under. That's okay. Just come back as many times as it takes, because every return is a victory. Every moment of noticing is an act of awakening. One elder woman I once knew kept a tiny note on her mirror that read, "Today, I choose peace." She told me that on days when her joints ached or when grief whispered through her bones, she would stand in front of that mirror, say it out loud, and then begin again. Some days she believed it, some days she didn't, but over time, she said, peace came anyway. So, start where you are. Start with one thought, one breath, one gentle redirection, and let your practice be this: to keep coming home to the parts of yourself that are still alive, still hopeful, still capable of joy. Part 5. Aging with Grace. Letting go of emotional baggage. There comes a time, often quiet, sometimes sudden, when we look back and realize just how much we've been carrying. Not just the years, the memories, or the bittersweet milestones, but something deeper, regrets that hardened into self-blame, old wounds that never fully closed, words we wish we had said, others we wish we never had. And if we're not careful, these invisible weights begin to define how we move through the world, not with openness but with hesitation, not with peace, but with a quiet, aching heaviness. But here's something most people never get the chance to hear before it's too late. You are allowed to put it down, not because it's all resolved, not because you've untangled every knot in the story, but because you deserve to walk through your remaining years lighter, freer, and more present for what's still unfolding. There's a powerful teaching in Buddhism, one that echoes across nearly all of its traditions: let go or be dragged. Simple, but piercing, because the mind, when untrained, will cling. It clings to identity, to pain, to the idea of how things should have gone. And the older we get, the more practiced this clinging becomes. It becomes part of the way we define ourselves. I am the one who was betrayed. I am the one who lost too much. I am the one who never quite healed. But you are not what hurt you. You are not what others failed to see in you. You are what remains after the storm, the part that endured, the part that still wants to find beauty, even with a tired heart. I once sat beside an elderly woman named Miriam, a retired nurse with soft eyes and a voice that trembled with time. She told me about her daughter, from whom she'd been estranged for almost 2 decades. The wound was deep and raw, even after all those years. Every holiday, she said, I'd sit by the phone waiting for it to ring. Every birthday, every Mother's Day, I'd imagine what she looked like now, what I would say if I had the chance. And each time the silence would come like winter through a broken window. I asked her what changed. She smiled, faintly. One day I realized I was keeping her absence more alive than her presence ever was, and I was dying from it. That winter, she wrote a letter, not to send, but to release. She told her daughter everything she never could. Then she folded the paper, lit a small candle, and let the letter burn in a bowl of water. I didn't do it to forget, she said. I did it to remember who I am without the weight. That is aging with grace, not pretending nothing hurt, but choosing not to be held hostage by the hurt. In Buddhist practice, we often speak of non-attachment. People misunderstand it sometimes, thinking it means indifference or cold detachment. But in truth, non-attachment is the deepest form of love. It says, I see this, I feel this, but I will not be defined by this. I will bless it, learn from it, and release it. So many of us spend the autumn of our lives dragging the heavy summer behind us. Old lovers, broken friendships, mistakes, missed chances. But what if we simply laid them down, not erased them, not denied them, but gently set them down beside the path as an offering, and then walked forward, lighter? Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering differently. It means making peace with the fact that the past will never be any different than it was. And yet, the future still waits to be shaped. And that shaping begins with what we carry into it. So, if you're tired, let yourself be tired. If you're grieving, let yourself grieve. But when the moment comes, and it always does, choose, even softly, to open your hands, to give your pain the gift of space. And in that space, let something kinder bloom. And maybe, just maybe, you'll discover that what feels like the end is really just the beginning of a much softer way to be. Part 6. The gentle art of noticing, learning to see what's still here. There's a peculiar thing that happens as we grow older. Our eyes may weaken, but our vision deepens. And yet, even with that deeper vision, it's easy to miss what's right in front of us. Not because we're blind to it, but because the mind has been trained for so long to look for what's wrong, for what's missing, for what didn't go as planned. We become so accustomed to searching for signs of failure, loss, or fading purpose, that we overlook the quiet beauty of what's still here, still breathing, still blooming. In Buddhist mindfulness practice, there is a core principle called vipassana. It means clear seeing, not seeing with the eyes, but with awareness, with presence, with the kind of attention that no longer rushes past the ordinary, but bows to it. And here's the humbling truth. The practice of noticing is one of the most powerful forms of healing we'll ever know. There's a story from the Zen tradition about a monk who, after decades of study, was asked by his student what the essence of enlightenment was. The monk smiled and replied, "When I eat, I eat. When I sleep, I sleep." At first the student was puzzled. Wasn't that what everyone does? But then he began to understand. The monk wasn't distracted while eating. He wasn't regretting the past while walking through the forest. He wasn't reliving old conversations while sipping tea. He was fully there, and in that simple act of presence, peace had room to enter. I remember once sitting with a woman named Carol, a grandmother of 5, who had recently moved into assisted living after her mobility declined. She told me, with tears welling up in her eyes, that she used to feel invisible, that after a life of being needed by children, by a spouse, by co-workers, now no one seemed to ask for her anymore. She said, "It's like I'm watching my life from the outside now, like a guest." But then something shifted. One morning she began writing in a small notebook, not to record accomplishments or to-do lists, but simply to notice. She wrote down 3 things each day that she observed. One day it was the way the light hit her windowsill. Another day, the laughter of the nurse in the hallway. Another, the way her tea tasted just right with a splash of milk. "I started seeing my life again," she said. "Not the big stuff, just the little things. But the little things made me feel alive." That's the power of attention. What we notice grows, and the more we look for signs of life, the more life begins to show itself. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that suffering often comes from our resistance to what is. We long for what was. We fear what's next. But what if, instead, we just noticed what is? Noticing doesn't mean ignoring the hard stuff. It means refusing to let it be the only thing you see. It means looking again and finding something soft beneath the harshness. It means choosing to witness the smile of a stranger instead of replaying yesterday's disappointment. It means catching yourself in a spiral of worry and saying, "Ah, there you are, mind. But I choose to see the leaves dancing outside my window instead." This is the gentle art of reclaiming your attention, not with force, but with grace. And so when the day feels dull or lonely or small, return to the present with the eyes of a beginner. Ask yourself, what have I been overlooking? You might be surprised, because the world is still whispering to you, still offering quiet beauty, still placing moments of wonder at your feet. You only need to notice. Part 7. Peace in the Storm. Responding. Instead of reacting, there's a certain kind of wisdom that doesn't come from books or teachings or even years. It comes from having weathered the storm more than once. It's the wisdom of knowing that life will not always be calm, but we can be. That the winds may howl outside our door, but the flame inside us does not have to flicker. And yet, even as we age, many of us still struggle with this. How to stay grounded when emotions rise like tides and the world around us won't stop spinning. One of the most transformative insights from the Buddha is this: you will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger. This isn't about shame or guilt. It's about recognizing that our suffering often doesn't come from what happens, but from how we react to it. Reactivity is a pattern. It's the old reflex to snap back when we're hurt, to close off when we feel unseen, to raise our voice when we feel small inside. But response, that's something else entirely. Response is presence. It's clarity. It's the breath between the match and the flame. I once met an elderly man named Samuel, a Vietnam veteran with silver in his beard and a history as complex as the scars on his arms. He told me that for most of his life, anger had been his default language. It protected him, he said. It made him feel strong, untouchable. But as he grew older, he noticed something unsettling. He wasn't angry at anyone in particular anymore. He was just tired. And beneath the armor, there was only loneliness. He began practicing breathwork, not elaborate, not performative, just sitting each morning, hand on his chest, breathing in through his nose, out through his mouth. And with each breath, he learned to pause. That pause became his sacred space, his stillness in the storm. It didn't make the memories go away, he told me, but it made them less loud. It gave me a chance to choose something different. That's what response does. It gives us choice, and choice is freedom. Buddhist teachings call this mindfulness, the ability to witness a thought, a feeling, or even a surge of emotion without becoming it. Like watching a storm from the safety of your porch. You don't deny the thunder. You don't pretend the rain isn't falling. You simply stay still enough not to be swept away. This becomes even more essential in our later years, because by now we've lost things. We've been hurt. We've buried people. We've made mistakes. And the emotional landscape inside us is no longer simple. But we can still be at peace, not by silencing the storm, but by learning to hold our ground within it. When someone speaks harshly, we can pause and remember that their words are not a reflection of our worth. When fear rises in the middle of the night, we can sit with it like a guest and ask it what it's come to teach us. When the weight of the world feels too much, we can step back, not out of weakness, but from wisdom. The Dalai Lama once said, "Do not let the behavior of others destroy your inner peace." And truly that kind of peace doesn't come from retreating from life. It comes from facing life with a new kind of strength. A softness that isn't weakness. A silence that isn't emptiness. A stillness that isn't avoidance, but awareness. So when the next storm comes, and it will remember this, you are not the storm, you are the mountain. You are the steady ground beneath it all. And in that stillness, you will find not just peace, but the power to respond with compassion, with patience, and with the kind of dignity that no one can take away. Part 8. Money, Time, and the Inner Riches. As the years pass, the world often begins to whisper, sometimes loudly, sometimes through the silence, what you haven't earned, what you've lost, what's running out. Money, time, opportunities. There's a subtle pressure that creeps in, even in later life, suggesting that our value is measured by what we have. How much remains in the bank, how many years stretch ahead of us. And yet, when we sit quietly with ourselves, beneath all that noise, something ancient and undeniable rises. We are more than what we possess. We always have been. Buddhism reminds us of this with remarkable simplicity. The Buddha once said, "Health is the greatest gift, contentment the greatest wealth, faithfulness the best relationship." What a beautiful redefinition. No talk of gold or time left on earth, only presence, gratitude, and the treasures we hold within. It's not to say that money or time don't matter. Of course they do. A secure home, a nourishing meal, the freedom to care for our health. These are real, tangible needs. But once those needs are met, we must ask ourselves, what are we chasing, and what is it costing us to keep running? There's a man I once knew, Howard, a retired engineer, who had built a modest but comfortable life. He was careful with his finances, proud of his discipline. But after retirement, he fell into a spiral of fear, always worried about running out, not just of money, but of relevance, of usefulness, of time. He stopped traveling. He stopped giving. He stopped enjoying the very life he had worked so hard to secure. "I was saving for the future," he told me, "but I forgot I was already in it." This is the poverty that often goes unnoticed. Not a poverty of means, but a poverty of presence. In Buddhist thought, one of the greatest forms of wealth is contentment, not settling, not giving up, but learning to appreciate enoughness. And that's a word we forget in our culture. Enough. We're taught to push, to accumulate, to maximize every moment. But in the second half of life, wisdom whispers something else entirely. Slow down, look around, breathe. It is already enough. There is richness in a cup of tea taken slowly in the morning sun. There is wealth in a conversation where someone finally listens to your whole story. There is abundance in a body that still moves, still holds you, even if more gently now. And then there is time. Time, once seen as a race, begins to soften into something else, a sacred offering. We begin to see that time is not only what passes, it is also what opens. With fewer external demands, there's a quiet liberation, the freedom to tend to your soul, to explore forgotten joys, to give your attention to things that matter, not because they produce something, but because they nourish something within. There's a Zen proverb that says, when you realize nothing is lacking, the whole world belongs to you. What a radical, beautiful invitation to stop measuring our lives by the calendar or the ledger, and instead to begin measuring by presence, peace, and connection. So if you find yourself worrying about the money you didn't make, or the time you think you've lost, pause, breathe, ask yourself, what is already here that I've overlooked? What richness lives in your hands, your heart, your stories, your kindness? These are the currencies of the soul, and the beautiful truth is, you never run out of them. In fact, the more you give them away, the multiply. To live richly is not to have more, but to need less and love more. Part 9. Creative expression in later years. The soul still speaks. There's a quiet myth that floats through our culture, often unspoken but deeply felt, that creativity belongs to the young, that after a certain age, the well of inspiration runs dry, that the colors fade, that our stories no longer deserve to be told. but nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, it is in the later years, when life has carved its lines into our faces and our hearts have weathered both storm and stillness, that our expression deepens, not despite our age, but because of it. In Buddhist tradition, the idea of samavaka, right speech, is not simply about speaking kindly or truthfully. It is about expressing oneself from a place of clarity and compassion. And expression in its truest sense isn't limited to speech. It flows through every brushstroke, every poem, every song hummed while folding laundry. It is the soul finding its voice again, even after years of silence. I once met a woman named Judith, who began painting at 78. She had never considered herself artistic, never taken a single class, never held a brush beyond painting walls. But after her husband passed, and the house grew unbearably quiet, something in her stirred. She began mixing colors, at first uncertainly, then boldly, and painted with a kind of freedom that only life and loss could unlock. Her paintings weren't polished. They weren't technically perfect, but they were real, full of emotion, full of story. It's not about being good at it, she told me. It's about giving my feelings somewhere to go. That right there is the sacred gift of creative expression. It gives shape to what words cannot hold. Too often, older adults are encouraged to be still, to rest, to live quietly. But stillness doesn't mean silence, and rest doesn't mean absence. There is an entire landscape within each of us. Decades of laughter, sorrow, longing, transformation, waiting to be poured into something meaningful. It could be writing your memoirs, not for publishing, but for your grandchildren. It could be returning to the piano, even if your fingers are slower now. It could be sewing, storytelling, singing, gardening, or simply speaking your truth to someone who needs to hear it. Every act of expression is a mirror, and in that mirror, we rediscover who we are. In Buddhist teachings, the self is not a fixed thing. It's unfolding, always becoming. So who's to say that the most beautiful part of your voice isn't rising now, in the quiet? There's an old Zen saying, the flute is silent until the breath arrives. You may feel like the instrument is rusty, forgotten, but the breath of presence, of attention, of heart, can bring music again, perhaps softer than before, but no less powerful. The truth is, after 60, 70, 80 years of living, you are filled with things the world needs to hear. Not advice, not perfection. Essence, experience, humanity. And perhaps what your soul is asking now is simple. Can I speak again? Can I create without judgment? Can I share something that comes not from my head, but from my heart? The answer is yes. Not only can you, but you must. Because expression is not about proving worth. It's about honoring existence. It's about telling the world, gently but clearly, I am still here. I still feel. I still have something beautiful inside me. And so, pick up the pen, the brush, the knitting needle, the journal, the prayer. Let your life pour out, not for applause, but for release, for connection, for healing, for joy. Your creativity is not behind you, it is within you. Part 10. Reclaiming energy by choosing what not to feed. There's something almost sacred about energy in the later stages of life. Not just physical energy, though that too becomes more precious, but emotional, mental, and spiritual energy. The kind that fuels your peace, your clarity, your sense of self. And yet for many people past 60, that energy isn't being depleted by the demands of life, but by the quiet, constant leak of attention paid in the wrong direction. We don't often talk about this, but it deserves to be said. What you don't give your focus to is just as important as what you do. In the same way that a garden thrives not only from what is watered, but also from what is not, so too does the inner world depend on what you withhold from unnecessary attention. Buddhism has a powerful word for this, vairagya, often translated as non-attachment, but at its heart, it means choosing not to engage with what drains the soul. It is not rejection, it is wisdom, a quiet discernment. The ability to say, I see this thought, this fear, this craving, but I will not feed it today. I once met an older man named Glenn, a soft-spoken former contractor who spent most of his retirement years in a small cabin by the lake. He told me something I'll never forget. "You want to know when my life finally felt peaceful?" he asked. "It was when I stopped arguing with people who weren't even in the room." At first I didn't understand what he meant, but then he explained. Every day he found himself replaying old conversations, things he should have said to his brother, things he wished he had told his late wife, resentments toward co-workers from 20 years ago. And slowly he realized he was giving his energy to ghosts. So one day he wrote all their names down on slips of paper, folded them, and placed them in a small box. "I don't carry them anymore," he said. "If they visit me, I just nod and say, 'Not today.'" That was his way of choosing what not to feed. And maybe we need that practice too. Because you see, the mind is hungry. It wants to chew on something. If we don't guide it gently, it will feast on worry, jealousy, comparison, regret. These things don't just sit quietly in the background. They eat away at us, slowly. They cost us sleep. They sour our meals. They distract us from beauty that's happening right now. Think about it. How many times have you replayed the same disappointment, hoping this time it would end differently? How often do you scroll or sit or stare, reliving a moment that is no longer yours to fix? Buddhism teaches that awareness is the first step to liberation. Noticing that your attention has been hijacked is not a failure, it's an awakening. And so the practice becomes simple, but not easy. Begin to starve what no longer serves you. When a familiar fear arises, notice it, but do not entertain it. When the old blame resurfaces, greet it, but do not sit down for tea. When you find yourself drifting into criticism, gently ask, "Is this where I wish to spend the last light of this day?" Because that's the deeper truth. Your focus is not just a habit, it is your vote. Your energy is your investment. Your attention is your spiritual currency. And when you stop spending it on stories that keep you small, bitter, anxious, or tired, you don't just feel lighter, you become lighter. Like a bird shedding old feathers, like a tree releasing leaves in fall. So today, make a quiet vow to yourself. I will not water what withers me, and little by little, the weeds will fade, the noise will soften, and in their absence, something miraculous will return. Your clarity, your vitality, your presence. Part 11. The hidden power of attention over intention. In today's world, we're often told to set intentions, to visualize, to affirm, to dream bigger. And while intention certainly has its place, especially when paired with conscious effort, there's another force at work beneath the surface. It's quieter, subtler, but far more influential over the course of a life. That force is attention. You see, intentions are what we say we want, but attention is what we actually feed. And in the long run, it's not our hopes or goals that shape us. It's what we consistently focus on, day after day, thought after thought, even when no one else sees it. Buddhist wisdom invites us to examine this distinction with clear eyes. Where the mind goes, energy flows, the old saying goes. But there's more to it. Where attention lingers, identity forms, and this is where it becomes deeply personal, because many of us especially later in life, carry beautiful intentions. I want to be at peace. I want to feel more joy. I want to reconnect with what matters. But if we're honest, where is our attention actually going? Is it still drifting toward comparison, toward worry about things we can't control, toward grievances from long ago that have long stopped evolving? If so, then no matter how beautiful our intention may be, it is attention that is writing the story. There's a simple yet profound Buddhist analogy that illustrates this. Imagine two wolves inside you. One represents fear, anger, jealousy, and regret. The other represents love, compassion, patience, and peace. Which wolf wins? The one you feed, always. The one you feed. I once knew a woman named Lillian, a retired librarian with a gentle demeanor and a sharp wit. She had a journal filled with positive affirmations, quotes, and dreams she had collected over the years. Every morning she read them like prayers, but one day she admitted, "I don't feel any of it. I read them, but then I go back to feeding the same anxieties." That realization shifted something in her. She began practicing micro-awareness, not grand gestures, just tiny shifts in attention throughout the day. Instead of worrying about her health every time a new ache appeared, she acknowledged it and then turned her attention to the breath. Instead of ruminating about old conversations, she practiced noticing the warmth of her tea, the pattern of sunlight on her wall, the softness in her breath, and slowly something changed. "I stopped trying to intend peace," she told me. "I started living in it, one moment at a time." This is the power of attention. It's not loud. It doesn't demand applause, but it rewires your inner world in ways intention alone cannot. So ask yourself gently, where does your mind settle when it's unguarded? Where does it run when you're tired, distracted, or alone? If you can begin to bring awareness to where your attention lives, not with judgment, but with compassion, you can begin to guide it back, again and again, to the places that nourish you. Because here's the truth. The life you think you want is already available, beneath the clutter, beneath the noise. Not in some distant future when everything aligns, but here, in this moment, waiting to be seen. And the bridge between where you are and where you want to be, it's not your willpower, it's not even your dreams, it's your attention. So start there, quietly, lovingly, devotedly, and let your intention be carried, not just by hope, but by where you choose to rest your gaze. Conclusion: you become what you quietly nourish. As we reach the close of this quiet journey inward, let us pause together, not to rush off into another distraction, but to gently let the wisdom settle like snow on still ground. We began with a simple yet powerful truth. Your focus is creating your life, not in loud, dramatic ways, but in the soft patterns of thought that repeat themselves, in the emotional corners you linger in the things you water day after day without even noticing. We explored the mind as a garden, where every thought is a seed and every moment of attention is a drop of water. We remembered that we are not our thoughts, we are the caretakers of what we feed. We saw that while we may not control the storms of life, we can find refuge in the eye of awareness, in our power to respond instead of react. We spoke of letting go, not as a loss, but as a sacred release of what no longer needs to be carried. We returned to the present moment, learning to notice again what is still here, what is still beautiful. We reclaimed our energy by choosing what not to feed, and we understood that attention, not intention, is what quietly sculpts the soul. And perhaps most importantly, we remembered that it is never too late to shift, never too late to speak through creativity, to live richly without needing more, to rest in the truth that peace does not come from adding, but from choosing where to rest your gaze. So now, I offer this quiet invitation to you. When you wake tomorrow, what will you water? Will you give your attention to fear, or to presence, to regret, or to gratitude, to noise, or to the whisper within that still believes in something soft, something sacred, something still unfolding? Because the truth is, your mind will always wander. That's its nature. But you, dear one, have the power to guide it home. And home is not a place. It is a way of being, rooted in clarity, presence, and quiet wisdom. So let this be your gentle vow, to feed what uplifts, to release what drains, to honor the life you have, not by striving to fix it, but by choosing to see it clearly and love it more deeply. And now, if this message spoke to your heart, if even one part of it helped you remember who you are beneath the noise, I invite you to join us on this path of quiet transformation. Subscribe to Quiet Wisdom, where each video is crafted not to rush you, but to return you to what matters, to what heals, to what is real. Let us walk this journey together, breath by breath, with eyes open and hearts soft. And above all, may you always remember, you become what you quietly nourish. Until next time, stay well, stay awake, and stay deeply at peace.